Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so pleased to be here at DevOps Enterprise Summit to talk to you about leading from the middle, a middle manager's guide to impact. And I am Steve Pereira. I am the founder of Visible Value Stream Consulting and a senior director at Capado. And I'm joined here by Andrew Davis, who's my co-presenter and co-author.
Hey, everybody. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Innovation at Copado. And while those titles may sound impressive, the reality is much more humble. Steve and I are both just another middle manager at Copado. So we'd like to talk to you about the challenges, the opportunities of being a middle manager, and what does it mean to try to execute leadership in that context. So there's actually a book called Leading from the Middle that we found after we came up with the name of this presentation by Scott Mouts. He has this quote: being in the middle means you have the opportunity to lead in all directions. So that is an extraordinarily optimistic and encouraging quote that I want you to contemplate and keep that in mind through the presentation. You have the opportunity to lead in all directions. So how can we make that a reality? So let's start by thinking about the sources of influence in company decisions, because that's effectively what we're trying to do if we're leading, is trying to help influence the way the company makes decisions. So of course there is executive leadership, and everybody knows they've got a lot of power and influence. They get things done. And then there are individual contributors. Now, of course, individual contributors also have the day-to-day granular decision-making capability. They're making thousands of small decisions every day for your organization. And of course, there's external circumstances that are guiding and moving your organization in different directions. If you're a middle manager, you're sitting somewhere here in the middle between the executive leadership tier and the individual contributors. And that is your sphere of influence. And we're going to talk about that phrase, sphere of influence, a lot in this presentation. I would like to remind you of this diagram from a little organization called the DevOps Research and Assessment Group, who came out with a little report called the State of DevOps Report, which we all know and love. And so this set of capabilities that all drive software delivery performance and drive organizational performance. Now you'll notice here on the far left is transformational leadership. This has 5 characteristics: vision, inspirational communications, intellectual stimulation, supportive leadership, and personal recognition. Now, if you ponder those for a minute, right, those 5 characteristics, those are not the exclusive purview of any one person in the organization. Of course, if you have a CEO who models that, that's fantastic, or a CIO or whoever. But that's something that all of us individually, wherever we are in the organization, we can all embody that. Now, it may be that if you're a technologist, the areas of this diagram that you have most confidence in are things like database administration and version control and so forth. And that's fantastic. Now, it may be that leadership is not something we're feeling as confident about as we might. I want to reflect on why that is. Leadership means going somewhere new. By definition, you can't just follow anyone else. And when you're going someplace new, that is high risk and high reward, both socially and practically. And there is a social risk that we incur if we express a new idea, express a new vision, criticize an existing direction, or at least call out some risks and limitations to a current plan. And so we need to know that there's that risk, because if we're not conscious of that risk, it may just unconsciously suppress our confidence in leading. And I want to boil all of leadership down to this one statement: leadership just means influence. So I've contemplated that for the last 25 years. It comes from this book from John Maxwell. This one sentence I find really powerful to summarize what we're talking about when we're talking about leadership. It just means influence. When we're talking about influence, there are 2 kinds of influence: push or pull. So push influence, or direct influence, sometimes called hard influence, hard power, it's telling people what to do. It's positional power, right? Or rewards or threats, those kinds of things. We're all very familiar with that. The other kind of influence, though, is indirect influence or soft power or pull influence. And this includes many different characteristics. And we want to talk about four of them here: value, clarity, flow, and networks. So I'm going to introduce these four concepts, and Steve will explain a little bit more in detail how we can exercise these to get things done. So value, clarity, flow, and networks. When we talk about leadership, it's very common that people go to thinking about organizational politics. How many times have you heard people talk about organizational politics? Oh, so-and-so is being a jerk, or they're obstinate, or oh, I was overruled, and so forth. It becomes very, very hard for us to make decisions and guide and change the organization if we're thinking in terms of the people involved. It's me versus Steve, and Steve is always stubborn about this, and I really want that. And when we think about interacting with people, it becomes a little bit harder. But if we look beneath the surface, what's happening is these relationships of value, clarity, flow, and networks. Now, I want to encourage you that influence grows the more it's used effectively. So you already have influence, and it'll grow the more you use it effectively. What we're looking to do is create within our organizations harmony as opposed to disharmony. So if we think about disharmony within an organization, it wastes energy. People are moving in different directions. You've got misaligned or conflicting goals. You've got difficulties in communication. You've got a lack of trust. As opposed to harmony,